Outlaws.
Hello, Adam. How are you? Episode
Hello.
65. You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. You?
I'm all right, thanks. Tell the truth.
Just feeling a wee bit run down, but it's fine. It's gonna be fine.
You look a little bit like Kevin Sullivan's master. Not quite as bad as the master.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I say, episode 65. We're still in the Halloween season, and we're actually in the Halloween season, which is novel.
Yeah.
Have you started your Halloween viewing?
Not really. I was trying to think about any horrors I've watched recently, but I think it's all been linked to what we've been doing. When it comes to, I've got a few that are particular favourites when it comes to this time of year, so I'll probably end up watching something along the lines of Halloween, not to be too inventive, but Halloween. And I've got a soft spot for The Shining, so it's the time of year where I consider doing that. What about you?
Both of them are two of my favourites as well. To be fair, I do like Devil's Rejects. It's not particularly Halloweeny, but I do like to watch Halloween.
Yeah.
Around about this time as well. I may delve into some of the others because I've not seen many. I've seen Halloween 1 and 2. I've seen H2O. Is it Resurrection that's got Buster Rhymes in it? I've seen that. And of course the Rob Zombie versions that we saw Halloween. Well, we saw both of them at the pictures, didn't we? But Halloween 2 was the Rob Zombie version was particularly interesting.
Yeah, I don't think we might. We thought the first one was okay.
It was,
and then the second one, it was something. There's like a white horse just appears or something like that, and I remember at that moment thinking, nah, this isn't for me.
Do you think they were like, just listen, Rob, we've seen some of your films, like you can include your sort of your hick redneck type characters and your dialogue, that's fine, but let's just stick to there's a character called Michael and he's a killer and he hates his sister. We're just going to stick to that. So for the first one he was like, and he stuck to it and he did all right, although he did go right into his background, didn't he?
And I'm never sure about that in a horror film. Is it like it probably fits well with some, and then some I don't want to know. I want to just believe that I'm sitting in my house and the crazed person could just be my next door neighbour and maybe they've just snapped.
Exactly. You don't need to delve away into his trauma of his past. Part of the mystique and the sort of thing that's terrifying about him is you've no idea who it is or why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the second one he went off the rails. Anyway, we're getting off topic. We're still Halloween Havocing for our sins. Can you believe that they're getting worse?
Like we started quite well, and then like there were a series of bad ones, and then there was one that I think was okay, like, and then this is bad, like, and we'll get there when we talk about it, but this was really bad.
This was really bad. We started off with like 89 was just like whole new brand new world to us, and we were just like, this is amazing. We loved. Maybe that's revisionist history, but I think we liked 89 quite a lot.
Yeah, we enjoyed it. Yeah.
90, 91 were all right. We had stuff with like Farouk, Ron Simmons and all that, and we had some great tag team stuff. 92, 93 had the questionable booking as far as every single match had to have a dodgy finish.
Yeah.
What are we doing now? We're in full-on Pantoland now. We'll get into it. But first, we shall start with our 1995 film, which was Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, which is obviously a sort of film version come off of the Tales from the Crypt TV series, the franchise. This is the first feature film that they tried to do. You've seen it before and I hadn't. Well, I'll give a little synopsis of the story.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay. The film follows the story of Breaker, played by William Sadler, who possesses a key that can unlock an ancient artifact capable of unleashing evil forces upon the world. A demon collector, played by Billy Zane, in an Oscar-worthy performance, relentlessly pursues Breaker and the key, leading to a battle for survival in a remote hotel. Some of the cast in this included, now I've just looked up that gentleman's name, William Sadler as Breaker. We had Billy Zane, we had Jada Pinkett Smith, and a few other recognisable faces, although I didn't, I couldn't pick the actors out, but some recognisable faces.
Who was the guy that was Roach again? That guy was...
that was Thomas Hayden Church.
Yeah.
He was an asshole. How did you enjoy your experience of Demon Knight? Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight.
I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I did in my younger days when I watched it. I thought it was fine, like it was like a bit of a lark, a bit of a romp. It wasn't. There's nothing overly clever in it. It's just a whole lot of, It's not too. Is it a horror? I suppose it is a horror, but maybe just. And there's some funny bits in it. There's some terrible, just rubbish bits in it. But I definitely enjoyed it more when I watched it years ago. And also, the other disappointing thing was, I've touched on this before. I bought the soundtrack for this on CD, and I loved the soundtrack of it. And there are a whole lot of songs that I loved on that CD that don't seem to feature in the film at all.
I wondered about that because I think I heard one sort of, right at the very start. I couldn't put my finger on who it might have been. You might be able to tell me, but I heard a song and I thought, oh, that's probably somebody decent.
Yeah, I remember hearing like Pantera on the soundtrack, Sepultura on the soundtrack, some bands that metal bands that I loved in my youth, and I'm listening, waiting for the songs, and they're just not coming.
Did I hear Cemetery Gates when they were?
Yeah, I think Cemetery Gates.
Right. Nice, like that. Yeah. One of my favourite Pantera songs. Well, that was disappointing then, because you did talk it up. You talked up the Crow soundtrack. I think that was merited, but there wasn't much. Do you know what? Do you know what this film felt like? Take away the nakedness, which they were throwing in there just for. They were going for it with that. I mean, 2 seconds in, we got a big old set right in front of us. But take that away, and this felt a little bit like the old was it 80s or 90s children's Goosebumps TV show.
Yeah, I get that. And there's some moments of a bit of gore, but it's over the top, so it doesn't come across as overly violent because it's ridiculous. So it doesn't make you go, oh, like Billy Zane putting his fist through the policeman's head and then pulling the head off.
I like that.
And somehow, I didn't love it, but I don't know, Billy Zane was perfect for this role. It just suited him down to the ground.
He was doing the thing where he was in his own film.
Yeah.
You know when you get an actor or an actress that just does that and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. He was having the time of his life.
Yeah.
I'd say to you, this felt a bit like The Mask mixed with From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
And if somebody heard that, they'd be like, oh my God, this sounds like the greatest film of all time. But maybe like the B version of that.
Yeah, it's not as good as The Mask or From Dusk Till Dawn.
No.
It's still better than Brain Dead, at least. I made it through it without too many issues. It just, I wouldn't watch it again.
Fair enough. Let me see if I've got some trivia. Apparently, we seem to be coming across this phrase cult classic an awful lot, don't we? Apparently this was a cult classic. I think it sent us both back on a little bit of a search to see if we can find some more old Tales from the Crypt, so at least it had a sort of lasting impact. Okay, there's not much to tell you trivia-wise. The film features an appearance by John Cassar, who provided the voice for the Crypt Keeper. I found the Crypt Keeper quite annoying.
Yeah, because like I had a VHS tape that had like maybe 3 Tales from the Crypt stories on it, and again I was very young. I was probably like, I don't know, teenage or something, watching these episodes, and I found them hilarious. And I found that
Amazing.
the stories. I'd be really keen to go back and see the stories, because I remember thinking, like, on the video there was a really good one, an average one, and a poor one. So it does make me think, if I could recognise there and then that some of them were poor, maybe some of them were really good.
Nice. It must have been, when was that? Was that early 90s or was it late 80s?
Yeah,
Well, this was 95, wasn't it? And it was their first film, so it was probably early 90s.
Yeah, because I think the TV show was established by the time the first film came out.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I bought the video when I wasn't supposed to. I think I was pretty underage for that. 89, the first episodes came out.
Okay. It must have been, we had Creep Show round about this era. We had Tales from the Dark Side. What was the film with the John Carpenter? Body Bags.
Body Bags.
That was a bit similar to this.
Yeah.
There's another one that I'm thinking that I can't think. But yeah. If I love this. I love this idea, this anthology style stuff. I know we get with Black Mirror.
Yeah.
And there was the Guillermo del Toro, what was that called? Cabinet of Curiosities or something like that?
Yeah.
Some of them were a bit.
That. Yeah.
So, all for more anthologies. Bring them all back.
Yeah.
They went and made another film in 1996 called Bordello of Blood, which I considered suggesting that we might watch next time, but it's apparently absolutely honking.
I've never seen it.
So there we go. That was Tales from a Crypt Demon Night. I think it's a kind of thumbs up.
Yeah, it's maybe like maybe a watchable 3 or 4 out of 10 for that. Yeah.
Okay, with that out of the way, let's get this wrestling pay-per-view. Possibly one of the worst wrestling pay-per-views I've ever seen. And I don't say that lightly because we've seen a lot of them.
I was immediately disappointed because I wanted to see more like Tony Schiavone in some sort of short film at the start, and none of that.
It was so well, I say it was so successful. How successful can something like that be? But it was class. But no such luck. We're back in the Joe Louis Arena. I believe we were there for 1994. The sort of caricature and campness comes over almost immediately with the videos. We're in sort of He-Man territory with the giant being shown as this sort of big evil looking thing. And straight in, we see the monster trucks. And I was like, oh no. Oh, is this the pay-per-view with the monster trucks? Absolutely devastated. Have you seen this before? No? You seen the monster trucks or anything before?
No, but I'd heard about it. I'd heard the fact that there was like a rooftop monster truck sumo match on a pay-per-view or something. I was like, all right. Okay. I probably just hope to never accidentally stumble upon that, but yeah. Here we are.
So it's Schiavone and Heenan on commentary again, so at least we've got the brain. They immediately show us Hogan and Giant. They're each in their monster trucks and they're revving them at each other. I mean, they're early to their seats. Are they just going to sit there for 2 hours? Hogan's back will have seized up. And Schiavone tells us that as they went on air, Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman attacked Ric Flair, which will lead into a storyline later on as Arn and Pillman are taking on Sting and Flair.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things when you watch these in isolation, 'cause even if you ignore the fact that we had Ric Flair retired at the last one, you'd always associated Flair to be with Arn Anderson in, one way or another, either directly or just part of the same wider group. But even at the start of this, Heenan is on Flair's back and he's criticising for the decisions he's made and things like that. So I've clearly blamed Hogan for a lot of what goes on here, because my notes basically say, so Hogan's gone dark but not gone heel. He's still Hulk Hogan. He's opposing the Giant, who is in a heel group. Monster trucks? Fuck off, Hogan. And then I've got the dynamics definitely changed between Flair and Heenan. I didn't even know this ever happened. Because he's always been a Flair guy, Bobby Heenan. So yeah, I'm probably several times in my notes blaming Hogan for this entire debacle.
Probably quite rightly. Okay, let's get in the first match. It is Diamond Dallas Page with the Diamond Doll and Max Muscle versus Johnny B. Bad for the World Television Championship. We get some build-up to this, but I did not take any notes about it, and I cannot remember the build-up, so you might have something about it.
So Johnny B. Bad was supposed to have had a title shot against Sting, which I assume was for the US title.
Yep.
He didn't make it to the show, and everyone's like, how could he miss the show for his biggest match of his career, biggest match of his life? And he turns up and he's late and he's missed it and he's been interviewed and he's like, I had a flat tire. I couldn't get here. And then one way or another, it quite quickly becomes clear that DDP was involved in the flat tire situation, and we get what I think was my first ever introduction to Max Muscle. I don't remember this guy, and yeah, so it's going to lead to DDP, who is the TV champion, defending his title against Johnny B. Bad.
That's right. Max Muscle had stood next to Johnny B. Bad saying, it's tough luck getting 4 flat tires before your big title match, and Johnny B. Bad giving it full over-the-top theatrical acting. I didn't say 4 tires, I said 1. So there we go. Yeah. Right from the off, we get a fake Johnny B. Bad coming out down the aisle, and the real one sneaks in the ring. So he's obviously having to take some extra precautions to get past Max Muscle. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this match? What do you think of seeing early Diamond Dallas Page? This must have been pretty early in his WCW career.
I've got some stuff about him. Like he's not there yet in terms of character and personality that he's going to go on to become. I don't know that he was ever, athletically brilliant. I think he's just kind of doing his moveset. I think he was quite a good seller, pretty over the top, but I think that's maybe just to be fair, that probably continued through most of his big run as well. I think he came across as a kind of larger than life type character. I don't think he'd quite got the psychology element yet. I don't think that's quite landed. I wouldn't say I watched this and thought, but you could see what star he was going to become. I would have watched this and thought, this guy is like, sort of lower card. That's just what he is. But fair play. He obviously improved in a lot of ways. The whole match, we've talked about Johnny B. Bad what feels like quite a lot of times recently, and there's kind of nothing that grabs me going on there.
Have you ever heard this criticism that DDP was in cahoots with Bischoff and he used this as an opportunity to get longer matches on cards? Yeah.
I know that they were. I don't think it's ever been disputed that they were close. I think they were pretty close friends, and that story's definitely been out there.
Right. Okay. So I never knew this, and I just thought this match seemed to go on forever. It was so long. I think I've got my notes here. We're 17 minutes in, and we're still at lots of sleeper attempts by DDP. It went too long for my liking. I was also confused about the rules and going over the top rope. One of the commentators mentioned it in the first match, and then literally a few moves later, both guys went over the top rope and there was nothing mentioned. I was a bit confused with that.
They seem to be This is, I think, one of the big difficulties when you watch these year on year, because they seem to be trying to tell the story of Diamond Doll maybe not being happy with being with DDP. I think that's his real life wife at the time, I think.
I think so. Kimberly, is it?
Yeah. And she's kind of, reacting to Johnny B. Bad. But it feels, when this is in isolation, like you haven't earned it for any kind of payoff because you haven't established them yet. But obviously we're just dipping into this. But because of that, you don't care. You're like,
nah,
whatever.
And things like that can grip you as well if it's done well and all that. But we're just like, nah. Johnny B. Bad eventually ends up winning the TV title after Max Muscle, what I've got here, is inadvertently hits DDP with a really shit lariat.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because it didn't look even like positioned properly. I couldn't properly tell if it was supposed to be a punch, a forearm smash, or a clothesline, and maybe it was just all a little bit
of them.
Yeah, a little bit of everything, maybe.
So there we go. I think we see Johnny B. Bad later on, and he's acting like he's never actually won this belt, despite I'm fairly sure he was defending it last year against Honky Tonk Man, was he not?
I think you're right, yeah.
Anyway, match 2. Match 2's better because very short and we get a fan favourite. So match 2 is the Zodiac, who is the Brother Brutai, who is dressed as some sort of zebra unicorn hybrid.
Was it? I didn't I heard the introduction as the Zodiac, and I'm like, I think had we looked at the card before, and we looked at it last week, and I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like or what it's going to be, but I still don't understand what it was supposed to look like and be.
No, me neither. It said he was representing the Dungeon of Doom. It's funny because last year, God Almighty, Halloween Havoc '94. It was the big reveal that it was the Brother Brutai who was the masked man, and you're thinking this is his push to stardom, and here he is getting squashed after in match 2. It was supposed to be Kamala versus Macho Man Randy Savage, but Kamala no-showed after getting paid $800 for a main event match against Hogan, and he was in disgust at that. So.
I can understand that. It doesn't seem like
Fair
enough.
Play.
They sort of talk about the fact that if Savage wins this match and Luger beats Meng later on, then Savage and Luger will have a match.
Yeah. Nothing beyond that, though. Nothing beyond to explain why.
Yeah. What's it for? Is it to be number one content? Is there because there's a sort of running story, I think, that they touch on a few times about Savage, Luger, and Sting, and they basically seen together and having conversations together and all that, and they're supposed to all be good guys, but are they in cahoots against Hogan, which I think the Dungeon of Doom are trying to play to that story. But yeah, there's no explanation as to what you get having won these matches.
So we're in October, and Bash at the Beach will be August.
Yeah.
So not too far from a Hogan heel turn, and those are the three representing WCW, are they? Luger, Sting, and Savage? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
A really interesting thing happens in this match, and it's the most exciting thing so far in the pay-per-view. Some random guy jumps in the ring.
Yes.
And I've seen videos of guys jumping in the ring when Savage has been wrestling before, and Savage beats the crap out of them normally. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't seem interested.
Yeah, because do they quickly take it to the outside, I think, and the fan gets dealt with, I think, by security. So you don't really see that. Basically, the announcers are telling you, some idiot's jumped in the ring, and you're probably thinking for a couple of seconds, is this going to be a thing? And then it becomes clear when they don't put the camera on in the ring, this clearly is just a guy that's jumped in the ring. But yeah, you do hear. I think you could get an absolute ass kicking doing that, in the older days. And Savage definitely has been in some stories about that kind of thing.
Yep.
I can't think, if I was a fan and I'm seeing these two massive guys, I'm not thinking I'm going to get in there. I'm
No.
happy that there's a barrier. I'm staying behind it.
B.B. Anderson sort of takes care of the guy along with some security. This match is really short. I think the Brother Bruti is injured in real life. Savage hits the elbow and it's over.
I had wondered if it was supposed to be even shorter if they hadn't had to basically get the guy out of the ring.
Savage's music's quite funny. I don't know if this must have been his jump over year. I assume 95.
Yeah.
His music's funny because I guess that music must just be free music. But it's like Star Spangled Banner electric guitar style, but Savage's music's quite funny.
Yeah, exactly. I had thought that. I assumed they could have probably just used the actual same music, but they've decided to try and jazz it up a wee bit.
Yeah, it's funny. Okay, we're backstage with the con man Mean Gene. He's selling the hotline, and he actually says, "Folks, please!" He shouts it. It's like Corner Beckham, please.
Oh, amazing.
That was great. Johnny B. Bad comes in and he starts putting over, never give up and all that sort of pish. It's just like, that's not what we're looking for we're not looking for anything from you, Johnny, but certainly no.
You're right, it was very much first milestone achieved type talk.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, if you look at it, he's not moved forward at all. He's still in the same spot.
And yeah. It's funny. What was it was the first TNA pay-per-view that I watched. So when would that have been? 2004, I think it was. And he was one of the first matches on that card. Johnny B. Bad in 2004, so 10 years later. Mm-hmm. Imagine having to go back to that gimmick after. So what we want from you, Mark, is you remember that Little Richard character that you played 10 years ago?
Yeah, you'd be a bit gutted, I think.
Match number 3 had a little bit of a backstory. It's going to be Road Warrior Hawk versus Kurosawa with Colonel Robert Parker. We're in October. We're told that in August, Kurosawa broke Hawk's arm. Yeah. Hawk does not have any sort of anything protective. I think he maybe has a bit of tape, to be fair to him, on his arm. I think the announcer announces it as a special return match. Mm-hmm. It was not a special match of any description. What do you think of Kurosawa versus Road Warrior Hawk?
I thought Kurosawa had quite the look. Like, he just had a bit of a crazy look about him. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd ever... The name... For whatever reason, the name rang a bell, but I don't think I'd ever seen this guy before. And I thought, I don't have any... There's nothing in me that thinks I want to watch Road Warrior Hawk as a single. I just not... There's...
Wow.
Yeah. Is that the full extent of the interview?
Yeah, that's it.
Like, I thought, well, they've clearly thought, right, these two guys are tough, they're strong, and they're just going to go at each other. And I think you sort of, they're playing up to the fact, Hawk, because he goes very like aggressive and on the front foot, that he is looking for revenge about the arm, and Kurosawa's just basically trying to take the arm constantly, which is what you would do, I suppose. But again, the match, I just wasn't interested.
There's a couple of things here that made me chuckle. We've watched War Games with Hawk and Animal.
Yeah.
Great War Games match. Can't remember who else was in it. Yeah. I think the Freebirds were in it as well on the other side. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Hawk won the War Games match using his neck breaker, which I think we touched on at the time. We thought it looked pretty brutal. Yeah. But Kurosawa kicked out it.
Yeah.
Which was strange. What else was I laughing at? Oh no, it's later on. It's after the match. I think they made a bit of a bumful of the finish, didn't they? Kurosawa hits a Samoan drop. He uses the second rope to pin Hawk, and also Colonel Robert Parker's holding Hawk down as well. It doesn't seem to make sense to have the babyface come back in a special return match from a broken arm and then get cheated out the win.
Yeah, like things like him kicking out of the Hawk's move, which we've been sold as supposed to be a pretty devastating move. I think I would get it if you fast forward a few months and Kurosawa's climbing up the card and heading in that direction. But I'm not sure we'll ever really hear much of him again.
Nah, it could have been going on like a sort of limb breaking run of legends or something. Schiavone's trying to summarise what happened at the end, and then he sort of gives up and he goes, "Brain, it's your turn to talk." Kind of sums things up, doesn't it? Backstage with Mean Gene and Randy Savage. I bet you loved this.
I did. Absolutely loved this.
For some reason, Mean Gene and Savage get into an argument about beards and moustaches. And I'm fairly sure that's not the purpose of him being there.
Like, it's part with it because Macho Man is his intense self, and he's talking about Hogan not being able to separate business from friendship. And it just comes seemingly out of the blue when he says to Mean Gene, "Your moustache is crooked." And then Mean Gene fires back about Savage's beard. And then it's kind of like they make up. They come back together. It was so weird, but it really made me laugh.
Mean Gene's such a little bitch. Like, he's always there with his fist in the air. Hey, what about you, though? Sort of thing. Just let him. And then he's like, "I don't know how we got onto this anyway." Savage is... What is Savage saying he's curious about? Is he curious about what happens with Hogan and the Giant, maybe?
Is it the monster trucks, I think?
Yes, maybe. That's what it is. It's his curiosity is killing him, just like the Get would. Brilliant. Give us Savage promos every pay-per-view, please.
He does say as well that he is going to make sure that Luger beats Meng. And I'm like, he's very keen for this match with Luger. Okay.
He did not. Then he didn't follow through on that, did he?
I don't think he gets involved at all, does he?
No. That absolute clown Kevin Sullivan does. Anyway, our next match on the card sees ECW legend Sabu take on fellow ECW wrestler. That's what Jerry Lynn's most probably known for, ECW. Is that fair?
I think so.
Jerry Lynn looking like a purple Power Ranger with a mask and the sort of Mr. JL has been billed as.
I was quite... See, because I think maybe at the time when we were going through the card, we were like, Mr. JL, okay. And I don't think I'd looked to see who that was going to be. And then the match starts, and I'm quite enthusiastic for this. I'm like, okay, bit of Sabu and Jerry Lynn, I can definitely work with this. So would they give it, like 2 minutes or something?
Oh, it's so short. It was like, Sabu must have wrestled in ECW before. It kind of felt like they were like, go and do the things that we've seen you doing.
Yeah.
Quickly. The Sheik is with Sabu. Unlucky for him, he's not taken that much notice of what's going on because Sabu hits an Asai moonsault and nails the Sheik.
Brutal. It was absolutely brutal. He did not see it coming at all. So I wound it back just to have another look at it. And yeah, he is totally blindsided by that. And I'm looking thinking, the Sheik is not a young man. This isn't the kind of bump he needs to be being hit by.
We definitely get like the sort of greatest hits from Sabu. He does all these leg drops and bounces off the ropes and whatnot. Slingshot moonsaults and is that his finishing move? The sort of slingshot.
Yeah, I've written in my notes quite early on. They're getting a lot of stuff in quickly, but then Hogan's probably only allowed them 90 seconds so he can drive a monster truck around later on. And I didn't realise at that point just how brief the match would actually be.
Sabu does this sort of victory roll type thing off the top rope, which looks like it's going to be spectacular, and then it looks a little bit like a primary school gymnast routine. Wasn't particularly impressed by that. Anyway, Sabu hits his Arabian Nights moonsault or whatever it is, and then the Sheik, I guess to make sure he gets his payday, hits Jerry Lynn inexplicably with a fireball after the match is done.
Yep.
Brain is outraged.
It just seemed mean. It seemed unnecessary.
He was well beaten.
Yeah.
Okay, we go what appears to be the top of the ramp. And this is where this pay-per-view, if it wasn't bad enough, this starts to drive down shithouse boulevard. Like, this is awful.
Is this the first moment, or did it happen earlier, where I became aware and I remembered that they were trying to sell the Giant as being Andre the Giant's kid? Like, rather than just have the fact, this guy's massive, by the way, and you're in a world of trouble because look at the size of him. They've gone for the full, you body slammed Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, and now his son is here to get revenge. Okay.
Is this where he's shouting about the father? Is that what that... okay, so we've got Kevin Sullivan with his face paint, and what I've got in my notes is some mentalist shouting his head off about the sun and the moon. This guy is called the Master, and I think I said to you, he looks like a He-Man villain.
Yeah.
He's fat and bald, but then covered in dark green... What? Makeup? Sludge?
I would have said sludge. It's got a sludge look to it. But what is this?
This is so campy and stupid. Was this supposed to be frightening?
I honestly couldn't tell, because you've got Sullivan there who has a bit of an odd look himself at this point, because I think he's got has he got some face paint colours on his face and stuff? Yep. And I'm thinking, right, I don't quite know where they're going for this, but he's obviously, he's in charge of the Dungeon of Doom, really. He's this guy is at the top of this. And they're talking about, he's basically just shouting at Sullivan, who's kind of nodding for a while, and it's a weird dynamic. And I always remember thinking that the Dungeon of Doom would have seemed like a WWF gimmick from late 80s or early 90s or something like that. Whereas WCW was always supposed to be the more, hard hitting, the more realistic, the more sort of true to life storylines and things like that. But Kevin Sullivan was never a WWF guy. And I think he had quite a big role in creative. And I wondered if has he just jumped the shark at this point? Is he thought that this is the way to go?
Apparently what they were doing was, and it chimes with the Kamala thing that I said earlier, apparently they're doing is they're wanting to have these giant heels, like monstrous heels, that Hogan's just going through. But they've taken that to an absolute extreme. Like, you can have big, formidable heels without them being, cartoon.
Yeah.
That guy is one of the worst things I've ever seen on any wrestling show.
It was so much worse than... Do you remember the Black Scorpion stuff? Which was quite entertaining.
The Black Scorpion stuff, of course.
Which was quite entertaining. But this is maybe an example of where you've gone wrong with this type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
They start talking about the Yeti here as well, don't they?
Yep. Yeah. Heenan says, so there must be referring to a WCW Saturday Night, and Heenan says he left before the Yeti appeared and he doesn't want anything to do with them. I wondered if that's his way of saying, please don't tar me with this brush. The Yeti. Why does he say it like that?
I don't know. I don't know.
This man is not a Yeti. Tell you that. Match number 5 is Meng with Kevin Sullivan taking on Lex Luger. Yep, go on. This goes too long again.
Yeah, this went on for seemingly hours. I also I don't think I want to see Meng in matches. I liked him being the intimidating guy standing on the outside. That worked.
Yep.
Here he's not very good. He's very limited in what he can do, but I fully believe he is a scary as shit guy. So yeah, just use him in a different way.
Yeah, 100%. He's the enforcer, the scary enforcer on the side.
Yeah.
Notice there's nobody jumping in the ring when Meng's fighting, by the way.
No.
This has an absolutely shocking ending, and not in the, oh my god, did that just happen way, but what the fuck did that just happen? Meng has a golden spike. He pops it on his thumb, which is all taped up, Umaga style. He hits Luger with it, who hits the deck, and we get the 1, the 2. Sullivan sort of traipses into the ring as if any time will do, and tries to knock dust off of Luger. It's the softest little stomp that you've seen in your life that gets Meng disqualified. Meng's clearly not in on the swerve, and he's annoyed at Sullivan.
Yeah. So I was trying to, as we were going, piece this together in my head, thinking, right, is there a reason Sullivan wants Luger to face Savage rather than just going straight to maybe the slightly more obvious? But yeah, I felt like, again, I don't know if it's the announcer's fault, but none of this was being very well explained. Like, you're picking up on little bits and pieces about, they did talk about rumours of an alliance or an allegiance and things, but they're maybe just not planting the seeds quite enough as you've been going.
Yeah, my problem is why on earth would Luger align himself with these nutters? Like, he doesn't fit with them.
No.
So I was just like, even if there was hints that Luger was aligned with the Dungeon of Doom, I genuinely wasn't buying it at all. Anyway, I have got that Mean Gene is with the Giant next, but I clearly wasn't too impressed because I didn't take any notes.
Mean Gene with the Giant ahead of the Monster Truck match. Giant did this weird thing where he was like, obviously he's got a much bigger hand than Mean Gene, and he's like gripped the hand and he's pulled the mic up quite high, and Mean Gene just looks quite physically uncomfortable through the whole segment. Giant's talking about how he's going to choke slam Hogan through the floor, and I've clearly got quite annoyed. What the fuck is the point of the Monster Truck thing being on the same show as they have the title match? Why is any of this happening? Why would you not just do this on TV if you needed to do it? Why? Yeah.
It's such a Bischoff thing. Have you ever heard Bischoff talking about it?
No.
No, me neither. I guarantee that he'll defend it.
I think when he's been talking about other things, I've heard Conrad just lay into him constantly saying, I mean, you killed a guy. You threw a guy off a roof. You killed him. So he comes to that quite a lot, but I've never actually heard them discussing it.
Okay, so our next match is the aforementioned tag match between Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman, taking on what was supposed to be Sting and Ric Flair. We get a lot of build-up from this, but the thing that should stick with you is Sting basically says to Flair, if you screw me on this, I'm going to trust you this one time. If you screw me on this, I will bury you in the ground.
So
which I really liked.
At what point did you think he's going to screw him?
Aye, pretty much from when they opened the pay-per-view and they said that Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman had attacked Ric Flair. I think this was really well done, to be fair.
I like this. Do you know what? I liked although the match was never really about the in-ring, because so the way this pans out, Sting comes out on his own, and we've been told that, Ric Flair's had this beating, so you've basically got a handicap match. So you're not getting your sort of normal tag team match dynamic, although they're making Sting look like, if anyone in the world can deal with these two guys, it's Sting. But I like the idea of an Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman team. And when they walked out together, I think we saw this maybe in the last Havoc, where Pillman's gone heel, and he's a really cocky bastard. But I like him like that. He plays it really well.
Brilliant. like you say, like Sting does this incredible job of fighting his corner against the pair of them. Eventually, Flair appears in his day clothes. He's got his shoes and his shirt and trousers on. And I think it's probably the first time in the pay-per-view the crowd are into this. And why would they not be?
Yeah.
Flair's given it full over the top, trying desperately to get to Arn and Pillman. And I started to think to myself, any time he gets close to them, he's not actually putting his hands on them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've got my notes. He's 100% screwing Sting here. So eventually Flair gets in when Sting manages to fend off the attacks. Flair gets in, and all three of them round on Sting and beat the shit out of him.
Yeah.
But it's great. But it's Flair. It's almost too obvious, but you sort of enjoy watching it anyway.
It was the thing I really liked about it, and you touched on it before there. So often in the past, when you've had a swerve in a match, you look and think, all right, but he was beating the shit out of him for ages. Do we just forget that? Do we just forget that he was attacking the guys he's now aligned with and he was physically doing them damage? But as you say, Flair didn't, because when he came down and he had his I'm going to make the save, he didn't really attack them. It was more of a verbals, more of an intimidation thing. And then he just had to go and stand in the corner because Sting was the legal man and he hadn't been tagged in. So it made it kind of work from that point of view. These despicable so-and-sos were just waiting and then timing their moment. And it feels right. It feels right to see Flair aligned with Arn Anderson. And we know Pillman was in the Horseman group. So I wouldn't say it came as a surprise when it happened, but I thought they did it well.
Yeah, I agree. And this you get three of your new four horsemen here. Do you know who the fourth was?
Is it Benoit here, or is it too early for?
Yeah, I think they must recruit him after this. The announcer actually announces Anderson as representing the Horsemen.
Right.
But they aren't actually the Horsemen at that time. Because I remember thinking, that's weird, they're doing the Horsemen without a Flair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Nicely done.
No, it was good. Who we got here? Who else? Mean Gene pushing the hotline again. And this is where he's outraged and is, let me get a word with these three gentlemen here.
It was great. He was so wound up, but he kept telling the hotline.
I never in the history of the business have I. You can hear all about this.
Amazing.
So Flair grabs the microphone, cuts a promo on Sting. Flair sort of gets to the end of his thing, and he's like, "Tell them, Arn." And then Arn does what Arn's class. We've said this before, but he's so good with the promo. Yeah. Pillman giving it a woo. Yeah, that was good. Who says we're reunited and it feels so good? Is that Arn Anderson?
Yeah, he does because the fans have clearly been chanting for the Horsemen, and when Flair hadn't appeared for the match, they were chanting "We want Flair" early on in the match. So Arn kind of leans into that, basically saying, "You asked for it, now you've got it. The Horsemen are back." And I just thought, that's class. That's class.
Nice.
Yeah.
Iron Mike Tenay in the back with Lex Luger. He refers to Sting as his good friend, and I was thinking, but you didn't come out to help your good friend when he was outnumbered.
Yep.
Only seconds ago, but I was thinking I was being a smart arse by pointing that out, but maybe, just maybe, that was a bit of foreshadowing about Luger going to the dark side. He intends to be all over the Macho Man and plans to make an example of him.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we get some background on Hogan versus the Giant. We get an interview with Bischoff. Now appears to be in the commentator chair with Heenan, and they're talking to some. Was it the man that had made built these monster trucks?
I think so. Yeah, definitely involved in the process.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
And then it cuts to the roof, and everybody's shouting and stuff like that, and Hogan realizes the camera's on, and he's like, "Wait a minute, what are the rules? Tell us, ref, brother." It's amazing.
God. Oh.
So this is the monster truck match. So we get them face off. There's rules. I think their monster trucks are like welded together so that they can push off each other.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I fast forwarded the monster truck match. I apologise.
Yeah. I don't have much in the way of notes, but I can run through what I've got. Right.
I watched what happened once the monster truck was out the ring, which is probably the important stuff.
Okay,
But yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Hogan, there's something Hogan says in the build-up about him having made his own monster truck, and I'm sure he thinks he did.
Yes, amazing.
My notes. I'm not going to be talking about a monster truck sumo match. I'd rather watch the fucking Yeti.
Yeti.
Hogan, they go back and forward. Hogan eventually wins, driving the Giant out of the circle. Yes, an actual monster truck sumo match on pay-per-view.
Do you think that's a real thing? Like, do you think that's what monster truck...
I really don't know.
Okay.
And yeah, that, like, all they do is go back and forward for a bit. That's it. And then eventually Hogan drives the Giant out, so Hogan wins.
Thanks for that. They get out their cars. They fight towards the edge of the roof. For some reason, one of them, I think it's the Giant, actually stands right up on the edge of the roof. So Hogan joins them. It looks like the Giant's going to throw Hogan off the roof, and instead, the Giant falls off the roof. And a very concerned Terry says, "Oh no, brother."
He starts asking for help, doesn't he? He starts calling for help. Hogan, so he plays the good guy in that he looks like he tried to save him. I mean, if he's falling like that and Hogan grabs the Giant, he is going straight down with him. That's a heavy dude. I don't care about the largest arms in the world. So the Giant's dead because we've been told how high this is and the fact that there's a river below now. Just with the height, he's not surviving it. He's done. We're going to have to cancel the main event, which is unfortunate, but that's what you get when you host a fucking stupid match like this in your pay-per-view ahead of your title match.
Very true, Adam. Very true. Afterwards, Brain is irate that this has happened. I've never seen him. I mean, it's not fair to Flair levels of concern.
Yeah.
Almost throughout the rest of... Well, we've got Luger versus Macho Man next, but he's very angry.
Tony Schiavone. So you've just watched a guy fall off a roof. For as far as you're being fed the story, you've just watched a guy fall off a roof, and Tony Schiavone says, "I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we have a world title match." He's got his priorities straight as Tony Schiavone.
I'm just Schiavone's like very tongue in cheek and wink wink at the camera sort of thing, like whilst Brain's 100% selling that this has happened. It's just occurred to me, have we missed the Maniac Mike winning the motorcycle thing? Did we just not take notes on that?
I didn't take notes on that.
Do you remember that though?
Yeah, I do.
Maniac Mike, he's going to drive this all the way. The guy's poor wife standing next to him looks like absolutely devastated that she's on this television show. Anyway, okay, so we're Luger Savage. Oh God, Jimmy Hart makes his way to the ring for reasons. He just sort of stands at the side, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he gets involved a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't enjoy this match. Luger versus Savage. You would think we would have, but no.
I was wanting a proper match, and it never really came to it. They do the thing at the start where Luger extends the hand for a handshake, and Savage sort of, I think, either kicks him or swats it away or something. And Savage always been played as this ultra paranoid guy. I think that's fully realistic for him.
Definitely.
But before you've even really got up and running, Jimmy Hart's making his way to ringside, and you're immediately like, something's going on. but you just don't quite know exactly what yet, because it's not like we've seen Jimmy Hart aligned with the Dungeon of Doom. So you can't really come up with the link very, very naturally in your mind. There's basically a few wrestling moves. I don't know how long this even went. I remember Savage doing some selling on the outside, and then starting taking control while still on the outside. And then Jimmy Hart's like up on the apron speaking to the ref.
For a very long time. They're just having a chat.
Yeah.
This went, so, nope. 5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes too long. You wonder why Jimmy Hart's up there, but he ends up getting in the way. I think Luger gets sort of ran into him by Savage. Savage hits the elbow, and gets the win. Pretty easy night for Savage.
So you're looking, because Jimmy Hart is aligned with Hogan here. He's Hogan's manager. So you're looking, thinking, well, I was trying to make sense of it in my head. Even if they've not officially said winner of this gets, number one contender or whatever, is Hogan's preference to face Savage rather than Lex Luger? Is he scared of Lex Luger or something? But again, it's just all a bit of a shit show because nothing's been properly explained to you.
Yeah.
And that's fine, that not knowing all the answers, but it didn't. I didn't think it even, gave you enough to start forming your own conclusions.
Yeah, it's fine to jump in on this a year through and not understand what's going on, but you get the impression that they've not actually explained it to everybody else who's watching week to week as well. Yeah. This is where Brain is irate and he storms off because he's needing updates. He's obviously very concerned about the Giant. But not to be perturbed, Hogan just comes out anyway. We have Michael Buffer announcing him. Pretty peculiar. Everybody's been witness to Hogan throwing a man off the top of a building and he's getting a huge crowd pop, which is questionable for Detroit. Hogan grabs a mic and says, "I didn't want the Giant to take the plunge, brother." Why did you throw him off a building, Terry? You sick freak.
Oh, brilliant.
Just as he's saying it, the Giant appears with Taskmaster, and Hogan just stares at the hard camera, which also gave me a laugh.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Jim in the office. So it's like looking at the brother.
The biggest worry that I got at this moment wasn't that, is the Giant fine, or is he, the Walking Dead? Is he, is everything okay? But it was more, I looked at the time left on the show and I thought, is this going to go like close to 20 minutes? Because I'm not into watching a Hogan v Giant 20-minute match.
Well, thankfully, what did it last? We got a lot of kerfuffle. Oh my god, did it about 60 minutes?
Yeah.
We got a lot of...
The biggest thing that got me, and I can't think if it was referenced by one of the announcers, but he's completely bone dry, the Giant. And they've talked about the fact there's this massive river that's below, and he must have gone into the river, and that's how he survived. But it's not even like wet hair or anything. He is completely dry, and I was thinking, at least sell it a bit. Chuck a bucket of water over him before he goes out, or something like that.
So what is the story they're selling us here? That he's just some undefeatable monster?
Yeah, I think that's what they're going for. Yeah.
Because obviously that's pretty obvious, but also, they didn't really mention it. I think they're just saying, "Oh, there's not a scratch on him." It's like, no shit. It's bizarre. That Hogan's got devil horns on his face. That are obviously, he's got this sort of Hollywood Hogan black stuff on, and they talk a lot throughout the pay-per-view of him embracing his dark side. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Hart's dressed like Johnny Cash for some reason. this was all a bit weird, and we just get a typical Hogan match, really.
I was also like at the start of this, I got annoyed by something that was said in commentary because I think they referenced the fact this isn't going to be, your classic wrestling match.
Oh,
And
like every
Heenan,
Hogan match, of course.
Heenan said, not like an Eddie Guerrero match, and I thought he was in. They've had him here, and he's in a dark match, isn't he? So
Well,
that
that's
upset
weird.
me.
That is weird.
He must have been on the show for him to mention him by name, surely. Because it'd be a strange thing to say. What year was this? 95?
Yeah, I'm sure Benoit was on a dark match as well, but there's no additional matches on Cage Match.
On Wikipedia, it's showing Eddie Guerrero against Disco Inferno.
Oh, God.
Paul Orndorff against the Renegade?
Nice.
Was that the fake Ultimate Warrior guy?
Who's that
who
like?
Became the...
Eddie Von Erich?
No. I think this is maybe a guy that they brought in to make it seem like he was Ultimate Warrior, but he wasn't. Just to get the crowd reaction, and then obviously they end up signing the real Ultimate Warrior, which will have, I think, killed off this whole thing. But you also had Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko beating Steven Regal and Earl Robert Eaton, Bob Eaton, I assume.
Oh, nice. I would have taken that.
Yeah.
Over anything that we've watched so far.
Yeah, just give us the dark matches.
That's an odd comment from the brain.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Hogan doing a frog splash, brother. Where are we? Yeah, devil horns painted on. Yep. Hogan's fighting a little bit dirty. He's doing his eye raking and back raking and whatever.
Uh-huh. There was one thing he did that really annoyed me, and it used to annoy me when The Rock did it as well. There's a choke slam by the Giant.
Big one.
And you're obviously designed to be thinking, well, that's it. But before he even covers him, or as he's covering him, Hogan just puts his arms under, and I was like, well, obviously he's kicking out. I've had memories of The Rock doing similar a couple of times during his career.
That point we get Hulk up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The usual. Does he hit the leg drop? I think he does. He hits the leg drop. Yeah. And it's at that point that Jimmy Hart reveals his true colours. I would never have thought Jimmy Hart would have double-crossed Hulk Hogan, would you?
Nah. It does make me wonder where they go, because I have had it. He's definitely not involved with Hogan when he goes NWO. I don't think.
No.
So maybe this is kind of it in terms of the on-screen dynamic coming down in. Because I think it was always the story that he was his real life manager. Like, he would book his travel and hotels and stuff like that, and eventually they just aligned him with him on screen. I think they did it when he first. Remember when he came back and he was like teaming with Beefcake when he came back to WWF? I'm sure they aligned him with him then, and then probably ever since he moved across. But yeah, I think he gets referred to as having been Hogan's weed carrier for quite a while.
Right. And remember, according to Hogan, he had #1 Billboard hits, Jimmy Hart.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jimmy Hart nails the ref with a belt, but Hulkster doesn't actually know that that's happened. I don't think the commentary team are even fully aware of what's happened, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
At that point, we get Luger, Savage, and the Yeti coming out. And Adam, could you describe to me what you would think a Yeti looks like?
So, what I would have thought a Yeti would look like, because I think a member of like the gorilla family, I think, but I think maybe white-haired. So I was picturing this massive white-haired gorilla type creature. It's not what I got.
Not Giant Gonzalez wrapped in bandages.
No.
Which is what we got.
Yeah.
And then the Yeti did some sort of humping motion. So Luger comes out and batters Savage. Big Show. Oh, I'm all over the place here. The Giant has got Hogan in a bear hug
Yeah.
on one side of him.
Yeah.
Just your normal bear hug. The Yeti comes the other side to provide some warmth on the other side, and just kind of starts very discreetly thrusting his hips until it gets to, well, some might call it the vinegar strokes. He starts getting faster and faster. That was quite a sight to behold. What was that?
Yeah, I had no explanation for this. I've got some stuff in my notes, but basically just slightly different way of saying what you're saying.
What on
It
earth?
looked so bad. Like, I couldn't think. I'm trying to remember if the announcers were saying anything about what he was actually doing, because I couldn't think how you would describe it without talking about it. Basically, looked like he's just thrusting at him.
Oh dear. Luger puts a torture rack on Hogan, then he puts on Savage. Heenan says you will never see a pay-per-view like this again. Kind of thinking, well, let's see. We've got 96 still to go. Michael Buffer announces the Giant is the winner?
Yeah,
via disqualification because of Jimmy Hart, is it?
Yeah, it's because Jimmy Hart hit Hogan. Yeah.
I was just thinking Michael Buffer announced that KSI versus, who was he fighting? Tommy Fury match at the weekend there. What do you think is like the low point of his career, that or this?
That's a tough one. Yeah. I suppose, do you think he has the slightest idea? He won't have the slightest idea what's about to happen, will he? He'll just be like, here's the names, you do the intro. When it ends, we'll tell you who to call as the winner. Yep. No problem. That's fine.
You have to wonder if he's got any. That must be a paycheck to him.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That can't be enjoyment.
I imagine right at the end of it, you're like maybe going and knocking on a door and saying, okay. I won't be doing this again unless...
I never ever want to see a 7-foot man thrust in like that ever in my life again, unless I paid for it. I've said here at the bottom of my notes that's maybe the worst pay-per-view I've ever seen. Legitimately, yeah. We must have said that a lot though.
Yeah, there's one. I remember one that was absolutely terrible. It was like I think it was called December to Dismember, when they were still trying to do the ECWWF thing, WWE thing, and I think it was just non-stop arguments between Heyman and Vince about who would go over and stuff like that, and clearly he just decided, nah, I'm not trying anymore. But I'd have to go back and rewatch to decide if it was actually worse than this, and I don't want to go back and rewatch.
Here's some comments from Cage Match. Make the Dungeon of Doom go away, please. I can't take it anymore. A sloppy and confusing mess of a pay-per-view that shouts out for some quality but ends up dying in its pitiful sorrows. Oh, somebody's a wordsmith. There were a few bright moments, one of them literally thanks to the Sheik. Brilliant. I'll give it 2 because there is some good stuff if you want to look for it. Well,
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Flair, maybe. WCW is just the worst. Every match is bad or worse, except for Flair, Sting, Anderson and Pillman. That was fun, but probably not a match I'd recommend. It can't save this event. It is so that especially everything to do with the Giant and Hulk Hogan. It's almost, but not quite so bad it's good. That's fair. That sums it up pretty well.
Yeah.
Shocker. Shall we take a peek at 96, or do you want to leave it a surprise?
I'm happy to look.
Let's have a peek. I know what the main event is, but I don't know anything else, so let's have a wee look.
Okay.
We'll be in NWO country, won't we?
Yeah. Maybe only a few months into it, but yeah.
Okay. Well. Okay.
Okay.
Who's Damien? Who's Halloween? There's a dark match. Who's this? Juventud and Psychosis versus Damien and Halloween. That's someone that I've never heard of before. I assume it's a luchador. Anyway, first match is a cruiserweight title match. Mysterio versus Malenko. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Singles match. DDP versus Eddie.
Okay.
Jeff Jarrett versus the Giant. Jeff Jarrett with Ric Flair versus the Giant.
Okay.
Chris Jericho versus Six.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
We'll take that. Arn versus Lex.
Okay.
Could be alright.
This is all sounding okay.
It is. Tag team match. Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael.
No. Okay.
Versus the Faces of Fear, Meng and the Barbarian with Jimmy Hart.
Oh. This is what Jimmy Hart went and did. Okay.
This is sounding very, I don't know, Survivor Series 1990 or something like that, isn't it? Harlem Heat versus Outsiders.
Okay, I can live with that. Yep.
And WCW World Heavyweight title match. Hollywood Hogan with Ted DiBiase versus Randy Savage. Oh no, Dusty's on commentary. I gotta tell you. Damn it. That sounds. There's no
It
Jim
sounds
Duggan
okay.
versus Steve Austin. Aye.
It does sound okay. I've never really, Steve McMichael wrestling him, but that's one match. The Giant v Jeff, we'll see. But the rest of it,
Could be.
I'll be heavily rooting for Savage, although I suspect I know the outcome already in that title match. But still, I think this sounds okay.
And for a movie, we've decided, because 1996 was pretty much dominated horror-wise by Scream, we've decided, because we'll be recording on the 31st, that we're going to watch the original Halloween and talk about that.
Nice.
So, yeah, a couple of things to actually look forward to.
Yeah, I am. I'm a big fan of Halloween, like the film. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's definitely one of my favourites. And I don't think I've watched it for a wee while now. So yeah, looking forward to that.
I thought this was the year that we would get that Eddie versus Rey Mysterio match. Where Rey's got that all-in-one Halloween-themed coloured suit on. That must be next year.
Yeah. Okay.
Jericho versus X-Pac. I'm all about that. That'd be good.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, you can get yourself to your bed and feel better, hopefully.
Thank you. Yeah, that might be happening very soon. Yeah.
And we shall speak in 2 weeks. Until then, take it easy, buddy.
Cool. Cheers.